Go ahead, David.
Hello, everybody. Hey, this is Street Epistemology call-in show with Pierce Watkins and myself. They call me Two-Day David. I go around with a cardboard cutout and I ask people to explain things to my friend here who was born yesterday. It's the second day on Earth. What they believe and how it's important to them, how we can understand it too. Pierce does interviews. I'll let him tell a little bit about himself and his own style. But we're going to be taking calls today and trying to understand things that you wish other people believed. And we're going to ask you questions so we can understand it better. And maybe we can figure out how others can understand it too. And the reasons you have if they feel useful after examination. All right. So Pierce, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself there?
Yeah, so I do the same thing as Two-Day David. I go around and talk to people about what they believe and why they believe it. And through some exploration, we talk about it and see if they've used good, reliable methods to determine what is true. David has a cardboard cutout of himself, Two-Day David, the man born yesterday. I don't have a cardboard cutout, but I like to talk with people about Alan the Alien, a guy who has never been to Earth, and how he can determine what is true. So something kind of similar. So I guess without further ado, we can kind of get started, right, David?
Yeah, I'm down to start. We're hosting this in a Discord server currently that has a room full of people here, and if you want to come up on the stage and discuss your belief, why don't you raise your hand in the server? And we will call somebody up here. And if not, we'll talk a little bit about last show.
And this kind of goes without saying. The link for the Discord event is in the description of the video. So that is where you can find that if you're watching only on YouTube. So it looks like we do have a taker. So I'm going to bring them up on stage. Hopefully they're coming up. There, all right. Hey, Taco, if you don't mind going off stage and going back on so that it works better in OBS here. All right, perfect. All right, how are you doing today? Actually, that didn't work, Taco. Maybe if you just stay in the audience. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it.
Hi, how's it going? I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, I was just wanted to put forth a couple my view on I guess epistemology. So, for example, there's all these different methods of determining what is true. Obviously, there's different interpretations of what is true. So I guess to be more specific, what I'm concerned with is like a sort of relativism, like cultural, moral relativism, but more of a like how that would apply to epistemology. So like epistemological relativism or something. But just to give a quick example, hopefully you guys help you guys understand where I'm coming from rather quickly. Like, the thought process or experiment, if you will, is that the universe, comes to us filtered through our sensory perception. And, you hear like all these secular atheist types, like, Sam Harris and all these, it seems like everyone's on board with the idea that, our conscious experience is our reality. And so going back to what I just said, if the universe comes to us filtered through our sensory perception, then it's, I guess the entailment there is that we don't have access to the way the world actually is. And so, a lot of people think that entails a whole lot, but, long story, like you can run in many directions here, but, long story short, I think you reach a point where Truth is just kind of like something that's just merely socially constructed, and uh, you know, power is the only real thing. There is no such thing as capital T truth. Truth is actually something that's just kind of handed to us by the people in power, right? Like people in power, they control the culture and therefore the epistemology, and different different cultures have different interpretations, and so I mean, like for example, I'd imagine that you guys have a certain method for determining truth that you value a lot. I think that you're that just so happen to um, that you just so happen to think is the most valuable methods for determining truth, I guess, is the best way to put it. Um,
Hmm.
so I don't know if you want to cut me off and add anything, or if you want me to just keep going.
I think what I heard here was you say that truth is socially constructed. Is that something that you believe is the case?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like not very explanatory. Like it's like a tautology just to say that, right? Like anything can be socially constructed. Language, any interpretation of anything, it's just all merely socially constructed. I think the main point is like I said, a sort of relativism. Like like you're. So I guess my question, if there is one here, do you think that these methods of determining truth in terms of street epistemology, whatever methods here, you think that they're sort of universal, that they transcend language and culture or something like that? And
Hmm.
that if everyone uses the same methods, we'd all get to the same truth or something?
So I think what I'm hearing is like if we all used, for example, like the scientific method, we would all come to the exact same conclusion. Is that your question?
Uh, well, not necessarily the scientific method. I'm just saying
Okay.
like street epistemology seems to promote a specific uh, like I don't know how you would describe it, like a method for determining truth, right?
I don't really think so. I don't think street epistemology promotes any particular method of determining truth. It's a conversational method based on the Socratic method.
Oh, okay, I
Um,
get it. So it's more or less like just examining how it is you've reached these conclusions or something.
exactly. It's an
Yeah.
examination of the methods used to determine a conclusion.
The goal is to get to how we come to our conclusions, and not just argue the conclusions. So if we can start talking at more basic levels, we can. It
Well, I
feels like we
mean,
can.
well, that's the
So,
thing is that truth as we know it, like I said earlier, people, whatever truth as whatever they conceptual, however they conceptualize it. At the end of the day, is just going to be something that has been handed to them by the elites or the people in power. The elites and the people in power, they control and manipulate their positions of power by controlling the culture and therefore the epistemology itself. And so this is where the narrative arises that, really it's just a battle of narratives, and, power is the only real thing, that there is no such thing as capital T truth.
Hmm. Do you feel as those things that like math are uh, true? Like that somebody can control the narrative on math, like 2 + 2 = 4?
I mean, yeah, yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I feel like math may be something that sort of transcends.
At what point do we stop going from something that can transcend language and culture to something that is unknowable, like or just so easily manipulated that you can't understand? Nobody could truly understand.
Well, I mean, questions around like morality and ethics, like how to run a society, like some of the most important questions. seem to be very hard and difficult to answer because of this sort of relativism problem.
I think you've been just kind of describing what, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been describing what other people think and like the definition of what other people think truth is. I guess I'm more interested in what you think. What is your definition of truth? Like, what is, if I were to say something is true, or you were to say something is
Well, I
true?
think that like truth is just a word for what we label like the consistencies we see within this conscious experience. Remember going back to
Okay.
what this like secular, what I hear from like Sam Harris, a lot of these secularists, I kind of agree with it, is that, the axiom or the starting point is going to be something like consciousness is something I cannot deny. You can't deny that it's like something to be you. And so that's a pretty good axiom, in my opinion. You start there. And then I think the next step would be that, so just to be clear, we're acknowledging that our sort of our conscious experience is our reality. Like this is the axiom, right? So you start with that. And I think that there are sort of thought processes and consistencies within our conscious experience. These thought processes may be something like the scientific method, and the consistencies would be like the results from the scientific method. And so these consistencies within our conscious experience, we label them knowledge and truth, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of trying to build up some kind of epistemology. I mean, obviously, from there, you would go into all this philosophy about justification and probabilities and likelihoods or whatever. Are you justified in believing this or that?
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is like there's these axioms, so there's like these assumptions that we make at the beginning, and because of these assumptions, some of our conclusions might not be accurate based on those axioms. So, for example, like we assume that reality is real, that we're, you know, real life human beings. But I guess it's possible that like we're in a brain in a vat situation. So a lot of these things that we believe are true might not actually be true because of the axiom that reality is real. Is that a good summary?
Well, I think my main concern, and I think you did catch on to a degree, I am convinced to a degree about what these people are saying, but I kind of want to get away from it. It's not something I like. In fact, this is why, ironically, I'm a sort of an atheist who's leaning towards becoming a theist, just because of where all the philosophical arguments lie here. Um, I'm just not really comfortable from uh, an atheist secularist position in terms of navigating this philosophical landscape. I think it's
Okay.
an absolute disaster for a secular and atheist. Actually, that's what I'm trying to warn, is that for a young person trying to, let's say, navigate the war of ideas or something, narratives, power is the only real thing. And so I think it's about time, people start trying to address this zeitgeist, you know, because it can be incredibly crippling for a thinker trying to establish an epistemology or determine what is true. Because remember, everything just gets deconstructed as being merely socially constructed dogma, no matter what narrative you're spewing, no matter what epistemology you've constructed. Um, and so I was trying to share a little bit of that. Like, there are real intuitions that people sort of try to build upon, like oh, the universe comes to us filtered through our sensory perception, therefore we don't have access to the way the world actually is. And then you take into account what the physicists are saying, and and the scientists, we could be wrong about everything. And you have the multiverse theory. Like, everything's just so difficult. The landscape is already so difficult to navigate as it is. But go ahead.
Indeed. I appreciate you sharing. I really do. One question that I had that I think is a really important question that we should ask ourselves. How comfortable are you saying, I don't know?
About what in particular? I don't know.
About I guess anything, but in particular, if you're not 100% certain about something.
Well, from what I've seen, and in terms of the historical context of these debates, let's say in this instance, the great debate, the scientists inclined versus the theists inclined, like it seems to me that I'm having a bit of a brain fart. Could you just bring me back to the question exactly?
So we got let's use the example you brought up and kind of what we've been talking about to a degree. We have the scientists who might say there's no God or something, and then you might.
Okay, I remember now. I remember what I was going to say now. I'm sorry, but yeah. As far as I understand, the atheists and the scientifically inclined side of the great debate have always been okay with asserting that it is okay to not be 100% sure. Like, that's okay. Like, we don't, we're trying our best to navigate reality, and we don't have this weird notion of absolute truth or whatever these theists are going on about, but that is okay. And we don't have to be 100% sure. And I think that I just wanted to point, I hope that's fair enough, that this is the position. This is sort of the narrative. But on the other side, this quickly breaks down. Like, the other side, the theists are just claiming to the atheists, like, hey, man, it's just a battle of narratives. Like, it really is just moral and cultural relativism to you guys. There's no truth, right? It's all broken down. And so, like I said, for any kind of young person trying to, or anyone in general, just trying to navigate this weird war of ideas, it's become very difficult to ignore this sort of postmodern zeitgeist, right? This narrative that I've been trying to share about truth.
It's difficult, and Pierce, the whenever you just have the guest on YouTube, the audio cuts out. Okay. So you want to keep it on all three of us if you don't mind. This is a difficult world to sort through, but I mean, I'm optimistic in a lot of ways. I mean, because even in the theist narrative, I mean, it's still a position of a bigger stick. I mean, it's just another power narrative. So either way, we have to figure out how to discuss these ideas. We have to figure out how to talk about how we get to the bottom of these things. Well, no matter if you
can't discuss.
There's a narrative either way.
Sacred ideal, right? Like, by definition, a sacred ideal, it's not to be questioned. Like, that's what makes it sacred. Like, for example, murder is wrong. Pedophilia is wrong, just to give a couple examples. Like, these would be considered religiously sacred ideals that are not to be questioned. They're not up for debate. So when you approach it that way, you can sort of see the conflict that's immediately going to arise, right? Like, I mean, I think this goes to the main point is that what makes religion, like, religion is very practical, right? And it sort of loses its practicality and utility if you allow for this secularism to infiltrate it and allow for everything to be questioned like you actually want. Like, you want this. You want and I'm not saying you're a bad actor. I think you are very genuine interlocutor. But at the same time, when you have this attitude of wanting to question everything to get to such a healthy understanding of things, you may be questioning things that are deemed sacred, right, out of necessity. And so I'm not saying anything against you. I'm just saying that this is almost impossible. Like if you're trying to have a functioning society, for example, and you want to have things like law and order, a sense of justice, you actually can't allow for these things to, like, these sacred ideals to be trampled upon and deconstructed and questioned, right? Like you
Where
get what I'm
does the
saying? Like
sacredness of these ideals come from?
the religious presuppositions sort of act like the glue that holds the society together. And when you start to lose the religiosity by allowing the secularism and the atheism to infiltrate and deconstruct, then that's whenever you see the just complete and utter decay of the society. People can no longer communicate, language breaks down, history starts to be rewritten. We've seen this many times.
Do you think that those things are immune to religious worldviews? The religious worldview is immune to history rewriting, language decay?
No, I'm claiming that religion is way too vulnerable to the secularism, to the atheist dogma, right? That the secularist and atheist dogma inevitably always infiltrates the religious communities, religious societies, and ushers in the collapse inevitably. Because, like I said, imagine you have a society where you have a bunch of sacred values that's like the glue that holds the society together. Like murder is wrong, whatever, just countless examples. And for some reason, you allow for a whole of your cultural ideals to be deconstructed and labeled, merely socially constructed dogma or something like that. Like, just to be clear, that's exactly what's happened in the West, right? In the West and in America, America was always a Christian nation, still is, to a large degree. And so in a modern political and social climate in America, Christians are being told they're neo-Nazi fascists, that they are oppressors. And it goes back to what I'm trying to explain, is that these secularist atheist types, neo-Marxist types, woke types, whatever you want to call them, postmodern types, these are the secular atheist types who are infiltrating, just like I'm trying to explain. Like the name of the game for these people is to deconstruct all of our language and our culture and our beliefs and just label it sort of merely socially constructed dogma. And I'm saying that people like you guys don't realize it whenever you're going around saying, hey, you should question everything. You should question everything, figure out how you're getting to these conclusions, right? You don't realize that maybe, like I said earlier, you're actually adding to the problem of allowing some of our most sacred ideals to be trampled upon, made a mockery of, and deconstructed. It's just the nature of the sort of philosophical landscape at the moment. Like I said, you guys aren't bad actors or anything.
I hear you. And hear me out. I mean, when we are questioning why you come to certain conclusions, why we try to get somewhere, the goal isn't just to eliminate these ideas. The goal is to make sure we get to ideas that are useful and valuable and good for society in a way that is sound, in a way that can get past the cultural zeitgeist, can get past the strong arm kind of mentality. The goal is to have a better roadmap to get to the kind of ideals that you're talking about. If you think the ideal is useful, if you think the ideal is sacred because it is something good for society, let's build a roadmap for it. Let's do it together. We can question things, we can take apart the remote to put it back together, and we know how it works. I mean, we can make things better.
Here's the issue, right? Is that I feel like you guys always act like you're in some weird neutral state. And I'm just saying that there comes a point in time where the rubber meets the road and you have to take a stance on something. And it's about more than just the process, right? And so that's what I'm saying. In reality, when the rubber meets the road, there are serious consequences to this type of questioning and this type of nagging. And like I said, no ill will on you guys. Like, you guys, sure. I think you guys do a good job. I think there's some good things to this, like people thinking about how they come to their truth and stuff like that. It's a great thing. It's just, I'm trying to nitpick it a little bit here and just,
sure.
I'm reaching a little bit, but I think that, like I said, if, for example, if you want to have a functioning society, right? I think a lot of people accept this by now, that if you want to have a functioning society, then the society has to have a sort of shared set of values and beliefs, has to have a sort of shared sense of identity in order to function properly. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that religion acts like the glue that holds our societies together. And
Do you think religious folks and atheists can coexist in a society?
well, absolutely. I think that if most people were honest with themselves and they were asked, what kind of society do you want to live in? They'd say something like a Christian-led nation, because no matter who you are, you could be an atheist, you'd still benefit from living in this nation. Like, you'd be an atheist, have a good time living in a Christian-led nation, like that,
Can an atheist leader and a Christian leader work together to lead a nation?
I mean, sure, they can, but I mean, the obvious issue is going to be going back to the ideals that would be deemed sacred. Like, the religious leader is going to act according or act as if certain ideas are not to be questioned. And on the other hand, the atheist thinker is going to be far too pragmatic, most likely, and do like immoral things. They're going to be evil, right? Because so there's this weird lie that a lot of people have been told about morality. It's that it's a secular humanist lie that you could step outside of the religious domain and do morality and ethics, and that's just a lie. Like, morality and ethics is necessarily the religious domain. Hence the reason why a lot of the theists accuse the secular humanists of just stealing a bunch of religious values and then labeling them secular. But so I don't know how you feel about that. Are you like on? Do you think we should be on board with this secular humanism? Like, just to be clear, it's the idea that we can get the moral and ethical societies we want going into the future without gods or religions. That will just reason our way to the future if we could just get rid of the religious dogma.
I don't think that we can necessarily reason our way into ethics. I think that we can have a certain goal. So we can, for example, if we want what's best for other people because we value them and because we care about them and because we love them, we can figure out ways to test to see if we're hurting them or if we're doing what's best for their well-being. But I don't think it's a matter of reason. I think it is a matter of goals.
And it feels like a lot of human behavior is driven by conditions and environments, and a lot of situations are more apt to develop more harmful behaviors, more self-indulgent, more anything that you could choose. Everything is affected by the environment in a sense. So if we can focus on understanding the whys, we can question the thing, we can set up better environments, we can try to set better scenarios at which the floor is less tilted for them to do the things that you are talking about. John, I really appreciate you coming in and giving us some thoughts on our process here and everything. We're going to hit the next caller up because, I mean, we're going to try to roll through the other people too.
Will you give me like one final statement, like about 10 seconds here?
Yeah.
My main point of everything I just said, keep in mind, like I said, I'm an atheist turning into a theist, is the answer to all of this is religion, right? Like I said earlier, the main point was when the society loses its religiosity, the society will inevitably collapse. So you can't have law and order, ideals like justice. These are sacred ideals. These are ideals that religious presuppositions adhere to. And when you lose all those religious presuppositions, you allow all the secular dogma to deconstruct everything. Everything goes to hell in a handbasket. But I appreciate you guys, and I enjoy what you guys are doing here. And thanks for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it, John. We'll chat again sometime soon.
All right, we're going. Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. We're going to bring Net up. I'm going to invite you to speak. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you great. Before we get started, I just want to ask, what brought you to this event?
I was in the politics Discord server and I saw your event.
Pretty straightforward way to find the event. And what drew you
Yeah.
in to actually click on it? It says
And
call-in
to
show.
come up on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's call-in show. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, sounds good. All
Yeah, there's
right.
a real. Yeah, I thought I could talk to someone who is um not dumb. Discord is full of dumb people. So no, if you guys have a call-in show, you are probably not dumb. Better than the
Pierce is
average
not.
Discord user.
I'm probably dumb. Let's be honest. But
No, no, I mean, uh, as compared to the average Discord user, I don't think so.
well, cool.
Anyways, yeah, I was here to talk about pedophilia.
All right, we are
Um,
streaming on YouTube, so
yeah, I
is
don't,
there?
yeah. I don't think we can
Yeah,
say
I'm
that
gonna
on
keep it.
YouTube.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's good. It's a good thing or anything. So, I'm gonna keep it
If
family
we
friendly.
can, yeah, let's keep it family friendly. Let's not say that particular word again, because I think YouTube
And
might pick up on that and not like that.
Yeah.
So let's if you
okay,
can
that's
use some
gonna.
extremely coded language, I'm okay with proceeding. Are you okay with it, David?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Okay.
What would you wish other people
Alright,
believed about that subject?
alright. I'm just gonna say it instead of that word.
Sure.
Works.
Yeah. So whenever people talk about it, they condemn it very hysterically. Um, they condemn it hysterically and without reason. I've never heard of I just when I hear people talk about it, I just see them become hysterical. I don't see any reason as to why they oppose it. I'm not saying I'm not saying I support it. I'm just saying that I haven't heard of a sound argument against it. Basically, I think society thinks it's bad just because we say so. It's only bad just because we say so. That's what it appears to be. And obviously, just because we say something, that doesn't make it true. So yeah, what do you think? Can you give me a sound argument against it? Because I don't. Nobody else can. They just become hysterical. They just become a hysterical mess.
Oh, what do you consider a sound argument? What does that mean to you?
Um, I think I have an intuitive understanding of what a sound argument is. I mean, it so depends on case to case. So I think you know what a sound argument is. So
Well, I guess what the question is what would convince you of the position which
I
that
don't
it
know
has
what would
an
convince me.
inclination? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what would convince me. I guess a sound argument would.
Um, can I get a little clarification? I'm not sure I understand your position. Um,
I'm saying when I ask people to tell me why they oppose it, they just become a hysterical mess, and I don't hear any reason. So, it just appears to be that it's bad just because we say so, and that really does not make it that doesn't make it anything true or bad, just because we say so. So,
I
what do you
think I
think?
understand that part. I guess I'm
So
wondering what your
that's why I think
position
there's
is.
no yeah. So that's why I think there's no sound argument against it. I haven't heard of it. So I mean, is there any? Do you have? Can you tell me? Can you
Do you
tell us?
feel as though there is ever a wrong situation in which you could do that act to anything or anyone?
Yeah, that act can certainly sometimes be bad. If it in question is unappealing or disgusting, then yeah.
Hmm. So
But
it's just
that
on
doesn't
preference.
necessarily. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It can be good looking.
If the scenario was with a non-human,
Yeah, I mean, people eat meat in our world, so if that's okay, then um, the B word, the beast, yeah, that word, I think
yeah.
that should be okay as well. Otherwise, if that's not okay, then the world, everyone is a hypocrite then, which they are. Um, but yeah.
Do you believe that, like, if you were to find out to the satisfaction of your knowledge, like this was like understood to your satisfaction, that um, children couldn't fully understand the situation, would that affect your
Um,
worldview?
yeah, they can't understand a lot of different things. That doesn't stop us from making choices for them. I mean, we do a lot of things to them. We vaccinate them, do so many things without their consent, do so many things that they don't understand, even if it doesn't benefit them, just because, why not? So, I don't really think that anybody thinks it matters whether a child understands something or not, or whether a child consents to it or not. I don't think anybody respects the consent of a child, considering all the things we do to them, or respect whether the child understands something or not because of all the things we do to children.
Hmm.
Like we vaccinate them, send them to schools, and a bunch of other things. We send them to participate in combat sports where they get hurt. Um, we do a bunch of different things. Like yeah, we do a bunch of horrible things to them. Corporal punishment in the U.S. is, I think, still practiced in some places. If all that is okay, obviously we don't care about their consent or whether they understand it or not. Even if it's not practiced, it's still not as taboo. It's not really taboo.
Do you
So,
do you put
consider all of that.
do you put the act that you're talking about in the same category as something that is supposed to be um, beneficial, such as um,
No, I don't
medicine
think it's.
or
I think before we are talking about pedophilia, which is before puberty. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I said that word. I won't say it again. Sorry.
yeah, we're going to have
So
to be
we're
careful
talking.
because we don't want to get
Yeah.
shadowed.
I'd like to ask
Okay.
you one question, and then I think we might want to move on to the next caller here.
All right.
I want to introduce you to my friend Alan. He's an alien, and on
All right.
his planet of Zyborg, that's his planet. He has a belief of his own among his alien in his alien community, alien world, and he believes that it's okay to walk up to other aliens like him and slap them, punch them, bite them, whatever, doesn't really matter. And the reason for this belief is because nobody has ever presented to him, a really good argument that that was wrong. So he kind of held the position that it was okay. Uh, do you think
He
that
should. I think
Alan?
he can. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, and he can. It's up to him to figure it out himself. Obviously, slapping someone is obviously harmful to them, but it is not necessary. It does not necessarily involve physical harm. I mean, that's
Um,
a scientific fact, I think.
Do you think if do you can you imagine a similar scenario where another adult has a power dynamic, a similar level of power over you that an adult would have over someone young like that? Do you think that
Power,
would go
you
ahead?
know, a power dynamic that is not abused. I don't think that's an issue if it's not abused. You know, there are power dynamics everywhere, but that's not really bad. What's bad is whether or not they're abused or not.
And how do you define abuse?
Physical harm, psychological harm.
If someone were to do an act to someone who didn't want that act, could that be psychologically harmful?
Yeah, of course it could be, but it does not necessarily involve that. You know, sometimes uh, both parties can consent, even if we don't count that consent, they can still say yes or no.
If
Can
And
you
someone's
before,
go ahead,
can
Pierce,
yeah, sorry.
someone's can someone
or
say
whoever.
yes, consent, but it not be full hearted, not really meaning yes or understanding it? Is that possible?
And yeah, and by the way, didn't we already establish that consent? We clearly don't think a child's consent matters, considering all the things we do to them. I
Well,
think we already
we're talking about
established
different
that.
categories of things. Um,
Sorry, I don't understand. And before this, we were talking about, how it can't be beneficial to it. I mean, yeah, we are talking, we're talking about it. That's not beneficial, but there is the H word and the E word. I mean, and there's also the statutory R word. So, in those cases, the child can believe that it benefits them. When I was 13, I think or I think when a lot of men were 13 or 14, we wanted it, right? I mean, a lot of us imagined it, right? So I don't think, a child necessarily have to believe that it's not benefiting them.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap up here. I'm gonna ask one last question. I'll give
Right.
you a moment to answer, and then I think we ought to be
Okay.
done. How could you know if you were mistaken?
By talking to someone who tells me how I am mistaken.
Is it
what would
possible
they
that
say?
you? Yeah. Okay, that too.
Oh, so are we done?
No, I'm saying what could the person who talked to you say that would convince you otherwise?
That's for them to figure out.
If you don't know what they could say, if you don't know what you could learn that would change your mind, how do you know if you're mistaken or not?
I can guess what they would say, and obviously, if I still don't disagree with myself, then obviously all the things that I've guessed, I do not find them convincing. So obviously, they're gonna have to tell me something I don't know.
Well, I'll be honest. I haven't had a conversation like this in a full scale, and I've got a lot of uh, homework for myself here. I'm gonna work on some more questions for you maybe next time, Net.
Oh, all right. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
Probably. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we are going to move on to Chase. Hey Chase, how's it going?
Hey buddies, how we doing? Thanks for doing your show. I sure like the street epistemology. Uh, Nice, polite way of interviewing people and asking challenging questions. I think it's good. Um, I have a topic I was wanting to talk about abortion, um, but feel the need to say a little something about the last interview, and that just being that, um, I think I wonder if I'll try to phrase it as a question, a polite question. Is I wonder
Let's talk
if
about ideas too.
yeah,
Instead
yeah,
of the people.
yeah. I wonder if scientific studies showing that it causes psychological harm would be convincing to that person. Um, you know, and having been subjected to it myself, even it's just not something that kids should have to go through. And uh, even if they think it's pleasurable at the time, they may end up realizing later what was actually happening to them and how they were being exploited by someone in a position of power. And it can maybe take them decades to
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Chase. During that whole last conversation, it was a bit difficult for me to keep my composure. So I appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on here and saying kind of what I was thinking, maybe a little bit. So
cool. So anyway, um, so I got a claim though. If you want to do street epistemology on me, you might want to explain for the group what street epistemology is. Give them a little refresher in between callers. I think might be a good way to go about it if you want.
sure. Street epistemology. You want Chase to do it? Is that what you're
No,
pointing towards? There?
whichever way. It's different on my screen than yours.
I
Apparently.
gotcha.
You guys go for it.
All right. Street epistemology is a conversational method, or some people call it dialectic. It's where you talk to people about something that they believe is true, a belief that they have of theirs. It can be a truth claim, it can be something more moralistic. And you talk about how they have come to their conclusion, the methods or the reasons that they have used to that gets them to their confidence. We keep it cordial and just go through it like it's a dialectic of the Socratic method. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It gets the critical thinking gears a turning. So, my claim I think is gonna be most abortions should be legal. There you go.
Okay. Most abortions should be legal. And the word most, wait, you said legal, right?
Yes, I did say
Legal.
legal.
I think I accidentally misspoke there. Most abortions should be legal. So there's a little qualifier there, the most word. So which ones should be legal and which ones should be illegal? Because there's apparently a tiny amount that should be illegal, according to that
Yeah.
statement, right? Okay, cool. You want to
Yeah,
elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so late term elective abortions I feel should be illegal. By late term and elective, by elective I mean not necessary for the pregnant person's health or for the health of the fetus. It's like as if done on a whim, like the thing's been cooking in the oven for a long, long time now, many, many months. Late term, we're talking, like past 24 weeks and stuff, and so past 6 or 7 months, and now all of a sudden, and this is very rare that somebody would do this, but I think this should be against the law because I feel it's infanticide at that point. Like this like, or close to it. Even if it's not an infant, it's so like close to an infant, whether it's outside of the womb or inside of the womb, that it should count because it's now sentient. And it's also viable at this point, meaning that it can, the fetus can be extracted from the womb and put into an incubator and kept alive on machines, basically. And so it's kind of like a win-win to some degree. So the pregnant person doesn't have to have this thing in them anymore that they don't want. But yeah, there you go.
Okay. And how confident are you that most abortions, as described by you, should be legal?
Yeah, I'd say let's go with I'm gonna go with a good 95% right now. Took a moment to really feel out that number, and I might need to adjust it one way or the other, but you know, that's where I'm
Okay.
feeling. And
And where does this come from?
I was gonna say, yeah, so like I've done a bit of research on this. I wouldn't call myself an expert on this issue, but I've done some research. I've got a document that I'll share in the chat for people who want to check this out later on. This is links to scientific sources about abortion, when it's performed, how at what trimester it's usually performed, and why. So abortion fact in chat. And yeah, just check this out later on. So most abortions are performed, according to my research, according to the British Medical Journal, Pew Research Center, etc. Most abortions, like 9 out of 10 abortions, are performed at or before 12 weeks, so 3 months into the pregnancy. So, and the late term abortions, anything which I'm not sure I would call anything after 12 weeks a late term abortion. I would call a late term abortion again maybe something past 20 or 24 weeks or something. But late term abortions are really rare and account for 1%. And that's after 21 weeks. I'm looking at my research right now. This is according to the Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention. The majority, So, and then there's another source that was saying, I can't remember which one, but of
Sure.
why they're performed. I'll wrap up real quick because I don't want to talk too long. Sorry if I'm ranting. But that
Sorry.
the reason that most late term abortions are performed is because of medical necessity for the pregnant person or the fetus.
And why do you think people disagree with you?
There could be a few reasons, but I think the main one that's coming to my mind is religious reasons, thinking of a soul. I'm not religious, so I don't believe in a soul. I've seen no evidence for such a thing. I'm open to being persuaded, but you got to show me evidence. But yeah, if people think that, God ordained this from the beginning of time and wanted this individual to exist and imbued them with a soul upon conception and all this, and that or even a secular view of it, which I actually used to hold as an atheist, a secular pro-life view based on human rights, because even to this day I'll acknowledge that maybe it's fair to call it a human being, like even when just a human being at their earliest stages of development, right? So not a person. I don't think they've gained personhood until they gain sentience, which happens somewhere around the 20 weeks, it seems. But I think it's fair to maybe say that they're a human, even when they're a zygote or a early fetus or embryo or whatever,
Okay.
Are you
But just
saying? Go ahead.
just
Pierce.
because they're a human. Just last thing, sorry, I didn't mean to. Just because they're a human doesn't mean they're a person.
You can go, David.
So if tomorrow you came across some information that led you to believe either one or two things: either that souls are real, or that fetuses were conscious in some way. Would that change your position?
Well, it would decrease my confidence because I would have to do a pros and cons, like a cost benefit analysis of the amount of harm that's being done to the fetus slash soul versus the pregnant person who, you know, like maybe got pregnant by accident and or by rape or whatever. But like, you know, sorry if I didn't.
YouTube. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, but yeah, my bad. But like, you know, but if they, you know, especially if they don't have enough time to realize that they're pregnant, and you know, but a lot of people get pregnant by accident, if not most people who get pregnant by accident, and or I guess I don't know if that's true, but like people who seek abortions, most people who seek abortions got pregnant on accident, I think. So, so they don't want this happening to them. Like, imagine if it was happening to you, like, and you didn't consider like pregnancy a miracle gift from God or whatever, and you were just like, I didn't sign up for this, I didn't want this, we took precautions, or you know, we tried, but like this thing got through, and now it's growing inside of me. It's growing inside of me. Do you understand? Like, I could imagine like not wanting that to happen to you, and like, you know, for 9 months, and then having to give birth. You know, that sounds like a lot. And then even, you know, even if you do give the kid up for adoption, that has its own heartbreak as well, because you know, might wish you had a relationship with that kid, or you know, and you might be sending them into a foster home that's no good, or you know, so ay caramba. It's a nuanced situation, you know what I mean?
It sounds like Chase. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be making an assumption, and I don't want to make assumptions. It sounds like your reason for belief, your reason for most abortions should be legal, is coming from a place of empathy.
Yeah, for the pregnant person and for the sentient fetus,
Yeah, yeah, it does. Is
but not all. Yeah, but and it is important to try to figure out exactly when sentience develops in a fetus. At what point, you know, what trimester and all that. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm trying to, you know, the research I've been seeing looks like it's mostly looking like around 20, 24 weeks. So 6 or 7 months, I think, right? Or 5, or is that 5 to 6? Yeah, 5 to 6, something like that.
Okay. I guess in either of the case here, so with regards to the laws and abortions, most abortions being legal, is the way we should determine these laws, I think you might agree with this, I think this is what you're saying, is that we should use empathy to create these laws so the least amount of harm is endured by these subjects. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And why is this the best way to determine what should be legal and what should be illegal?
Just that general sense of like reducing suffering and maximizing well-being.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
I
Like,
think so.
yeah, I just think that's what's best for the individual and that's best for society.
Okay.
Seems to be what most people prefer, and when people don't prefer that, like what's best for society or individuals, it seems they don't have good solid reasoning behind those arguments. I should say one other thing real quick though, that there's a PubMed scientific article about the risk of death associated with childbirth is approximately 14 times higher than with that of abortion. So it looks like abortion is like 14 times safer than giving birth. So that's something to factor in also, that we're like somebody who didn't sign up for this who got pregnant on accident, if we're forcing them to stay pregnant and give birth, we're forcing them to have a 14 times higher risk of death.
If that number were the opposite, would that affect your confidence level?
That's a great question. Yeah, it would probably decrease it a little bit, but I would still have to do that cost benefit analysis of the fact that they don't want it in them. They don't want to go through this process. And even if it were safer to go through the pregnancy, they might want to take the risk of an unsafe abortion if that were the world we live in, which apparently it's not. And maybe their rights should be respected because, again, I just could imagine not wanting to be pregnant and being pregnant doesn't sound fun. It's many, many months.
It is a big ordeal. The only thing I don't like about this call-in show, Pierce, is that I want to talk about 500,000 things with people, and I want to talk for hours.
Should we move on to the next caller?
Chase, I'm going to have to move on to the next call before I dive into 28 more things with you, buddy.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate the convo. Everybody
We
be
love you,
sure
Chase.
everybody be sure to follow Pierce Watkins on YouTube and 2-Day David on YouTube.
Woo!
All right, let's get you back to the audience. All right, we got our next caller here. Hey, how's it going there, buddy?
Nephilim free.
Might want to unmute yourself so we can hear you. Unless I have you muted. No, I don't. All right, I'll give you a few more seconds. I know you really wanted to hop on stage. You've been waiting a while. But you got to press the unmute button. Otherwise, this won't work.
Testing.
All right, technical difficulties, I guess. We will move on to the other person who has their hand up, I guess. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, okay. That's what we'll have to do. That stinks that didn't work out. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Hello. Nice to meet you all. Just to clarify, the previous person apparently is server muted. So if that is resolved, you can immediately just replace me with him again. I do find him very enjoyable to listen to. Anyway. So
Okay.
I wrote in something about abortions, and I do think that on both sides there is a logical inconsistency, if you know what I mean. Because it is strange, for example, for people who are for abortions, who are for the right of abortions, how they argue for individual rights, but at the same time also seem to be more for preserving life when it comes to the other policies. And on the other hand, you have people who say that this is a full-grown human or someone with personhood, and life should be preserved. But then the same pro-life crowd doesn't agree with other policies that, for example, when it comes to healthcare. I mean, like, I would like to ask you guys about these topics because David said that he had so much to talk about for hours about so many topics, and I would just like to ask you guys, like, where do you stand on this? Do you have an opinion on that?
I personally think that it's hard to group one agreement with 62 different problems to solve. and methods on how to get there. I think that there might be a similar value that they might try to champion, but I think there's wiggle room in a lot of ways for people to say, okay, I want pro-life, but I also don't know if I don't know if this healthcare option is the best thing, because I think maybe this is a better pro-life symbol. This is better for autonomy or something. So basically, I'm saying in a very vague way, it's complicated. So
Yes.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I have a similar thoughts on the matter. I have a lot of empathy for both the fetus and the mother, and I think that's really important to have. Um, I think in an ideal world, anyone who got pregnant intended the pregnancy, and went through the whole pregnancy, and life was happy and great. We know that that's not always the case. Um, I would like that, I emphasize with the unborn child, but I also emphasize with the mothers. It's very complicated. I think there's certain times in which, like, I think responsibility is important. Um, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Responsibility. I see.
Would you potentially want to talk about say that that this particular thing should be directly followed by the implication of being pro-life? You could say people who believe in that are pro-life uh, should think this. I don't know if that's a should though.
Yes.
One
Because
specific
I
thing.
did study philosophy for a semester, and I do find it interesting that if you are, like, when you say you're pro-life, then you must be for the preservation of either sentient life or life in general. But when the baby is born, it is like when it comes to the Venn diagram of people who are pro-life, but also against universal healthcare and helping out people in need when it comes to like their healthcare and everything, the Venn diagram is basically just a circle, and I just find this to be a contradiction, and this I can deduct from that it's not actually for these people about preserving life at all, because I do notice another correlation with these people, which is the banning or the restriction of, for example, contraceptions. And I mean, you can deduce from all these things that it's actually about sexuality itself, if you know what I mean. Because you guys saying responsibility, you said there is a responsibility for someone not to get pregnant. But then at the same time, it takes two people to get pregnant. And how is it that it's usually in the framework of what the women did? That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So I think what you're saying is that the people who are responsible for a pregnancy would both be the male and the female. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I mean, we do already have, like, in most states in the US and in Europe, we do have like child support and everything, that the person who's the father usually has to support the child if it's born. But then again, it's like strange when for the guy he has to pay money. That's the consequence for him. But for the woman who has to give birth, her consequence is even stricter and more difficult because she's the person who has to now birth another human.
Hmm.
I mean, it's very Lovecraftian kind of, you know. On one hand, you have this mother instinct and the hormones that are going through, and at the same time, you're like forced to like emotionally bond with this other human, and this is very, very disturbing, to be honest.
Would you be comfortable sharing what your position on the matter is?
My position is logical fundamentalism, in which I do not care which position you take. I'm just going to be bothered if you do not go through with this logic and apply it to everything else. Like,
Okay.
for example, one example I like to use is libertarians who believe in the ownership of your own body as the primordial property, that you own your work itself and you can sell it. You own your body that you can sell. And it's strange when this autonomy of your own body gets written away by almost like majority of libertarians when it comes to abortion, because then it's suddenly your body is now dependent on someone else's body, and therefore you lose the right. Like, I'm not libertarian, I'm not any of these things. I haven't had someone who needs an abortion or wants an abortion yet. I haven't got anyone pregnant yet that I know of. And so when it comes to that position, I would like this to be a personal decision. And it's most likely not even my decision, because in most countries, the woman decides.
Okay. I think I understand that. You would like whoever is pregnant to be the one deciding whether they have a medical abortion or if they choose to not have one. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. Where does this belief come from?
Mostly because of the consequence of our biology, because like I do think that when it comes, like, for example, when you create a product, the person that puts more work into it, in my opinion, should get to have to say a larger say in it. I put like maybe a minute of work into it. She's gonna put 9 months, and it's gonna affect her permanently.
That's humble.
I just think that
Hmm.
this is just how it works in my mind. I mean, 1 minute, 2 minutes, hell, sometimes I did 5, but hey.
Only 5 minutes? Come on, man.
Hey, the Minutemen made history.
Okay,
And
so
maybe not this way, but
what I think I'm hearing is that so you are in favor of it being a personal decision on whether a woman should have an abortion because they have put more effort, more work into this pregnancy.
More risk. They carry the risk like we do believe it in capitalism. The person with the
Okay.
risk should get the rewards.
Okay, it's more about the risk. Okay.
if somebody could chart a sizable amount of risk for the fetus's sake, if they could mark how much of it is affected and it added up to be a similar amount, do you think that it would have a say in that?
No, because the fetus is not able to say anything. It cannot hold an opinion. By definition, it is unborn.
Now I know this isn't the case. This is going to be a crazy hypothetical, but bear with me, please. Bear with me. So,
Yes.
if this fetus wasn't anything like what we believe it to be. We believe fetuses to, not really be able to think, or, they're not really fully developed human beings. But we got, 2-Day David in the background, the cardboard cutout. If we were to envision a fetus like that, a fully talking human being, thinking everything, would that change your stance? Would you be less confident?
It depends on my beliefs about bodily autonomy. And since I do believe that in most states and governments, we do respect bodily autonomy very highly, to the point that, for example, in Germany, there is a death penalty, but it cannot be performed because of the infringement on the bodily autonomy. And this is just the same thing with the baby thing, like the baby, let's say it does all these things that you say, a full-grown person who can communicate. At the end of the day, it has a right to its own bodily autonomy, not to be infringed, but not at the cost of someone else's body, because that's how bodily autonomy works. You don't have to give up your own bodily autonomy just so someone else is safer.
Does that extend to parents' responsibility? It's similar. It's a separation of the body, but if a parent neglects a child, does that infringe on their bodily autonomy?
These are not really, because then you're talking about a form of guardianship, because the neglect that is coming from that is affecting the child is from the actions of the other person, but the body itself of the child is affected by environmental factors and not directly by the actions of someone else. Because I do believe when neglect is an environmental factor, and ergo it isn't immediately killing the child. If the child were be directly harmed from this neglect, from these actions of the parent, then yes, you are infringing upon someone else's body without affecting your own bodily autonomy. Because there's a difference if a parent hurts a child, and then there's a difference of a parent having an abortion, because the parent has a right, because it influences the parent's body, whether there's a fetus, but it doesn't influence the body of the parent if there's a child already outside. This goes back to bodily autonomy.
How do you think you came to this conclusion, and why do you think other people don't meet you here?
It's basically, like I said, I just take things to their logical conclusion without any ideological bias behind it. And in the West, we do respect bodily autonomy. We do believe in the social contract. We do actually follow a capitalistic mode of production to the point where we cannot even imagine anything beyond capitalism. And I do like capitalism. I'm pretty good at it. And I just think we would have a more functioning society if we could be more thorough with our logic.
If we didn't have this need for bodily autonomy, where would you stand on abortion?
Oh, then we would be far more collectivist. We would believe in the collective, that the person should give up or sacrifice itself for the collective, and that would then be like, oh yes, you will be a mother, yes, you will be 9 months pregnant, and this is infringing upon your bodily autonomy, but the outcome is that there's more life to be created afterwards. And I cannot imagine something like this in this current capitalist mode of production. I cannot believe that this collectivist action, like then abortion then you should be pro-life, yes. If we had like a more socialist, God no, but a socialist-leaning economy.
Okay. If for you personally, if you woke up tomorrow, would you be on the like, I know you don't like these terms, but I don't know how else to say it, like the pro-life side?
So I would be on the pro-life side. Okay. Yeah, it's all about freedom, you know.
Okay. And with regards to bodily autonomy, why is that valuable? Why is that important?
Because that's basically how the current Western system is. It's one of the main building blocks of the Western system of governance and economy, and we have to believe this stuff in order to justify all the other things that are running in the West. For example, this idea that a person can sell his labor to an entrepreneur and get something out in return because he sold his labor, so he gets money and so on and so forth. He doesn't own the product, but he just gets the money for producing the product. And the autonomy itself, like for example, when you die, they're not allowed to take your organs because even though you're dead, unconscious, you don't exist anymore. But we extend this bodily autonomy even beyond death. No, we will not take your organs unless you agree to it while you were living. And if it wasn't there, I don't know, we would allow all these kind of things that, like most of these things are already like self-given. Like we cannot imagine anything else. We cannot imagine a government that harvests corpses.
Yeah, I hear you. So it sounds like what you're saying is this bodily autonomy leads us to all these other conclusions, and we've kind of already decided that all these other conclusions are correct. Therefore, the valuing bodily autonomy is something that we should do. Am I hearing that right?
Whether valuing bodily autonomy is correct or not is left to society. I'm just saying what society, what the Western world believes in right now, and my position is just what the law and the mode of production. I don't have really. I don't know if what would change if I was to wake up tomorrow and I'm suddenly pro-life or be like, oh, no more abortions. Okay. If I was a woman, it would affect me, but I don't think I can force it on anyone.
If or should we as individuals, me as Pierce, David as David, you as you, should we value bodily autonomy simply because the West has that value?
No, not for that reason.
Okay. And I
Depends
just want to circle
on-
back. Why do you hold that value?
Like I said, because I do believe in capitalism. I do believe in individualistic competition, and these things cannot work if there isn't bodily autonomy guaranteed by the state. Again, selling your labor, acting as a free agent.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a reason you value those things? Does that come from a deeper place?
Not really, to be honest. I mean,
Okay.
I just grew up wanting money, so I'm getting money. I like capitalism, and I just want to ensure that I get more money in the future, so more bodily autonomy.
That's
Unless we live like in a socialist state, then I would say, oh, I'll do anything for the collective. Then I'll work and work, and then I'll be pro-life. That's how it works.
mm-hmm. That was. I think I might have got lost on this train ride we went through. I just wanna explain the train ride and see if I got it right, if I
Mhm.
got all the stops correctly here. So I'll start from the end and go to the start, hopefully here, and I'm gonna try to. So we have like it ended with the last stop is if you desire to get more money, and I'm assuming like to that betters yourself. Uh, the next stop was like I think it was like capitalism, like you support capitalism,
Yes.
you want capitalism. The other stop was I think bodily autonomy. I think.
Yes.
Okay. So is it fair to say that all of these things are supported by you having a desire to get more money?
No, it isn't some
Okay.
intrinsic desire. It's just I'm just being part of the machine. If I was part of a socialist machine, I don't know, somewhere in Soviet Russia, then I would be like, oh, I want to be the best do-gooder, do as much for the collective as possible. And I'm just a survivor. Like, I just conform to the system that exists without any logical inconsistencies.
If should we hold beliefs just because we can't identify any logical inconsistencies?
Yes, because I do believe those are stable ones that can last for the future, because we see, for example, in a lot of religions how lots of the things don't hold up with time. When we discover new things in science and we see, oh, this one can't be correct, and this is why, for example, this is why you should start with just a few simple axioms, be like, hey, I want bodily autonomy. Hey, individualism, collectivism, blah, 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 all that.
Okay. Do you have any questions left, David?
Hmm. Do you believe if everybody had your view that the environment that for everybody would change? You're saying you oppose your view. You're in your view because you're in a capitalist world. That's where you are. If you were in a socialist world, you would lean into more socialist values. Do you think that your desire for non-inconsistency, if everybody did that, what would the world look like?
It would look exactly like it looks now. The machine will grind down anything that goes against it, even like I gave an example way in the beginning where pro-life people will lean into more individualistic my desire kind of thing, and you can see how these people are stringent supporters of hardened capitalism while at the same time turning around and saying that bodily autonomy should not be guaranteed for pregnant women. So no, it wouldn't make a difference either way if somebody thinks like me or they don't, because they will all be part of the machine. Whether the machine is socialist or capitalist doesn't matter.
Interesting. Clemash, you've given me a lot to think about.
You're
Do you have
welcome.
any? What's your impression after we tried to go through these questions with you?
My impressions?
Yeah, what was your impression of where we came through with all this?
I don't know. I never really formulated my views like this before, and I do find it interesting the way you guys approach this. You weren't really you were actually listening and trying to understand, and I was actually trying to get something out of you guys, like, where are you guys? What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
is there anything that you believe in? But you guys seem to be here to learn, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Sure.
Appreciate that. That's
All right.
kind words. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
In
Mhm.
that
Have
case,
fun
we'll,
with Neptune.
thank you.
He's very interesting.
All right. I appreciate the conversation there. That was great. I know we can't unmute him.
I think he might be unmuted. Let's give it a shot one more time.
We'll give it.
If he's not unmuted right away. And it looks muted on my end.
Yeah,
But
he looks mute. Yeah, he looks muted here too. So we won't. Oh, there. Hey.
somebody fixed it.
Good
Hey,
evening.
there it is.
How are you guys?
All
Doing
right,
pretty
how you
good.
doing today?
Good. I get muted a lot by people, so it's not a shock to me. Anyway,
Sure. So, what would you like to talk about? What do you wish
Sure.
more people believed?
well, I think a very interesting and important subject is the biological discoveries that life is intelligently designed that have come about in the latter half of the 20th century to the present. The evidences of intelligent design are multifold and astonishing. And, in modern biology today, we can model with computers what's going on biologically and then look at it on a computer screen. That was not possible just a relatively few years ago. But, and what these discoveries have provided us is with astonishing evidence that life is intelligently designed. It's the components of living things at the submicroscopic scale are truly astonishing. And the complexity and interdependence of it, the machinery, the information systems, it's just mind-bending technology at the smallest scale.
Okay.
What do you mean by intelligently designed? What would non-intelligently designed look like, or non-intelligent?
Yeah, I would say it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be at all. So, because it couldn't be that. So, the profound discoveries are a couple of things that have been discovered that are of these incredible evidences of intelligent design. One is the sheer complexity of biology. It's not plausible to believe that mere molecular interactions, just molecules vibrating and bouncing around, encountering each other, could cause the types of molecules necessary for life to arise and then organize them into the machinery, information-driven machinery of a cell, for example. That's just not a plausible scenario. It doesn't make sense to believe that undirected processes could ever, with any amount of time, ever produce that. See, so, and then of course, then there's molecular machinery in a cell. We know that there are 20,000 different kinds of molecular machines in your cells, and these machines have clamps, they have scissors, they have ratchets, they have all kinds of mechanical components. They have conveyor belts, do amazing things. I'll give you just one simple example. There's lots of them. I think it's helicase. No, it's topoisomerase. It's a molecular component comprised of several proteins, very large proteins. And these proteins are molecules, and they're biomolecules. And they have a particular shape, a three-dimensional form, right?
I think we kind of
forms.
get the gist here. I hate to cut you off. I don't mean to be rude, so hopefully you accept my apologies here. But I want to kind of repeat back a little bit of what I was hearing, just to make sure I understood it correctly. I think I did. So
Okay.
It sounds like you're saying that there's two options here. There's intelligent design, which I think you might be implying like a god was this designer. Is that the case?
I think that the science has revealed that we are designed. And so what's on the table today and what's going to be on the table in the future is who is the designer. I think evolution theory is scientifically dead. There's evidence that it's dying and going away. I believe the evidence shows from the turn of events in the last 25, 30 years that evolution theory will no longer be taught in university or high school in 50 or 75 years. It's gone. Okay. Because biologists use engineering language when they talk about biology today, and they can't look at each other straight-faced anymore and continue to claim what they're looking at evolved. They just won't be able to go there. They make fools of themselves talking to each other in that way, and they don't want to be a fool. So when this occurs, when it's that evolution has been wiped off the table, I think the point will be who is the designer. That's going to be the question. And it's going to come down to God or aliens.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was my question. Perfect.
Right. It's going to come down to God or aliens, depending on your worldview.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted some clarification on designer and what that meant. So God or aliens. Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was hearing was like there's these two options. There's a designer, which would be God or aliens, or the other option would be evolution. Am I hearing that about correctly?
Well, if the evolution is not true, then and we are designed, then there's really only two options on the table. That's the question that's going to be the big question of the future, and it's going to be a division between people, and just as it is today. You're an atheist, you're an evolutionist, you're a believer in God, you're a theist, you're going to believe intelligent design. But evolution is going away. It's all going to be intelligent design in the future in biology. So then it's going to come down to either some other life form of intelligence, it designed us, or the theistic belief that God did it. One of the two is going to be the answer.
How do you imagine someone will be able to determine who a designer is behind something like that?
Well, then you have to go outside of the subject of biology and look at the evidence for the two potential designers from other lines of evidence.
And why are we at two again?
Well, what is the third option? What third option could there be? If natural processes don't explain biology, but design does, there's an intelligent agent behind it. Some intelligence has done this. So I think, of course, that the evidence is that God did it. And there'll be some who will say, no, we believe aliens from another world did it. But I would say there are arguments against that idea that make that implausible. But others would disagree, of course. There'll always be people who would disagree with that. Always. Right to the end, I believe.
I don't want to assume. When you say God did it, what do you mean? Who? What?
Well, I'm a Christian, so I believe the God of the Bible is the designer.
I kind of want to explore that, but it feels like it derails from the original claim. What do you guys think?
I was thinking, I wanted to back up to a reason that I heard, because I think I heard a reason, and I think that reason might be worth exploring. It might be very important. But what I heard, and what I'll repeat back here, is that so there's these kind of two options: designer or not designer. And the reason that you believe that it is a designer is because you can't imagine a biological process in which the result would end up with life. Did I get that reason about correct? Is that your reason for believing that life has a designer?
Actually, no. It's not about what we don't know, And it's not about speculation. It's about what we do know. It's about what has been discovered. And
Okay.
so, for example, the laws of nature don't really allow for or provide for a naturalistic mechanism for the organization of matter into the complexity that we see. You know,
How,
there's the laws of nature move. Matter moves on this planet. Matter moves towards disorder, not order. And the job of every chemist, in fact, is to make matter do what it doesn't naturally want to do. That's what they do in the lab when they make molecular things, is they're forcing matter to bond in such ways with all kinds of astringent conditions. I mean, pH balance, temperature balance, putting things in at the right level, purified materials that they buy from a corporation that are extremely expensive. They're and they fail, they throw it out. They try again. They fail, they throw it out. They try again. They fail, they throw it out. They throw it out, throw it out, throw it out until they get something that works, right? And so it takes intelligence to order something like that. But nature just doesn't do it. You can't just put chemistry molecules into a vat and swish it around and set it on a shelf and come back in 30 years and there's something mechanical going on. There's machine in there. That just doesn't happen. The laws of nature don't allow for that, because matter moves towards disorder. Molecules break down, especially biological molecules are very susceptible to the environment. They break down readily. That's why bodies decay, right? So, and pathologists examine the body and they can give a pretty good idea of how long it's been decaying by the state of its decay, right? Because proteins, for example, they just readily disassemble in the environment. Water in the environment changes in temperature, they just break down, right? But something ordered this astonishing thing. That's the crazy thing, in contradiction to the laws of nature.
Do you imagine that the people who are doing the chemistry experiment and then they're setting the specific conditions to the right temperature, the right chemicals, the right this, and to reach a ordered attempt to do a particular thing? Do you think that same thing could happen in the natural world? Like we put different gases together to make helium for our balloons. Do you think that can happen naturally as over the course of the way that I actually don't know how helium is made. I'm going to show my hand here. I shouldn't have said that, but
it's an element.
Could it come up as a natural gas in that way?
Now, I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. But what we do observe nature make, it can combine a few things to make a couple of things. It's not a huge list of things, but it's not in the slightest way compared to what we observe going on in a single cell. If you could enlarge a cell to the size of New York City, what you would discover is a microcosm of machinery, information-driven machinery, which is all interdependent with each other, has mechanical functions, all driven by information technology. It would be more complex. It would be more complex than New York City, right down to the phones on the desks, the paper on the streets, and the automobiles and the birds' nests and the eaves of the buildings. That's how complex it would be.
How does the cell work and operate?
It's driven by information. It's driven by information in the form of RNA, which is a snippet of information copied off the DNA that becomes a catalyst to do something, or directs gene expression to make things in order to maintain and function, operate the cell. And it's also an energy production facility. And everything is driven by ATP, this molecule ATP. So it's machinery. It's complex machinery with numerous components that do astonishing things, even have logic gate functions and choice contingent controls, such as in the ribosome. Choice contingent. It's like software driven machinery, and that's the astonishing thing. For example, it's been discovered that the ribosome itself is an instantation of an algorithm, and algorithms come only from intelligence. Nature can't make an algorithm, can't write software. But
how do we know where this DNA, where this information came from? Do we know?
Well, I would say I do know. People are going to say they know. Theists are going to say they know, right? But
Yeah.
what the astonishing thing is that what we've discovered is that it was designed because of the evidence that it's information-driven machinery at the microscopic scale that
If we were to
requires
if we were to discover that this information, this DNA, RNA, if it did come about by throwing it in a tub of water and mixing it up real good with a couple chemicals, if that could result in DNA and RNA, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but if we made that discovery, what would it do to your confidence? Would you still believe that life has a designer?
Well, asking me that question is like asking me if I could ever prove to you that automobile standing in the driveway right in front of you is actually a grapefruit. Would you change your worldview?
I don't see the
It's
connection.
actually, I'm not trying to be pedantic here. I'm just being honest. I think it's a moot question. It's like asking something that's impossible. If I could prove the impossible to you, would you change your mind?
Do you think that in the past that they thought explaining things such as weather patterns or soil erosion or insect colonies, if they were to say that was an impossibility just from the technology at the time, fast forward 50 years from now, if we were to figure out how all this works and we trace it back to the things that made the building blocks to make it happen, how would that affect your understanding?
But we are discovering the properties of design. Again, it's not about what we don't know and what we could discover in the future. It's about what's already been discovered. And what's already been discovered has verified that life is designed by intelligence because it's software-driven molecular machinery, which is interdependent. And molecular interactions don't create that kind of thing. Everything breaks down on the Earth. It moves towards disorder, not order. And the order of biological systems is so astonishingly high. I mean, it's hard to express how incredibly complexly arranged it is that makes it functional. It's so complex. It's absolutely amazing. It's mind-bending. For example, the ribosome is comprised of a set of proteins. Each one has thousands of amino acids. An amino acid, you could consider it a BB, right? A little tiny round molecule.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of them are assembled in such a way that the shape of the protein is so incredibly precise that if this one particular amino acid out of thousands isn't in exactly the right location in that protein, the machine doesn't function. It doesn't do its complex work. That's how specific it is. It is so unbelievably specific. To believe that you could get by chance with any amount of time numerous proteins, large proteins with the exact shape that they possess, so that they interlock with each other and provide mechanical functions of flexing and pushing and levers and clamps to perform this astonishing function, is like believing you could go into a casino every day and pull the handle on a slot machine and win the jackpot every day for the rest of your life. That's the odds we're talking about. It's mind-bending. It's utterly implausible to believe natural processes in a world full of entropy could ever begin to order anything that begins to be close to that.
Let me tell you something that we agree on. The world is amazing. The intricacies of how things break down, how incredibly precise the world is in a lot of ways, how everything is stacked on each other. It's incredible. We're both in awe. We are.
All three of us.
Yeah. And imagine, like, play this with me real quick. Imagine you meet 2-Day David here. He was born yesterday. He doesn't have any life experiences. He's trying to figure it out. You're telling him about the complexities of the cellular structure, the levers, the software encoding, and he hears you say that it's driven by information, by software. And so he says, okay, where's the information come from? And you say it's from a God, but is that the information wasn't there before? Like David sees a river, and it flows down, the water flows down the river, and it creates an orderly path. Is that disorder from chaos in that way? Or is that an order?
That's more than anything entropy. That's just materials eroding to follow the path of least resistance. But biology, that's not comparable in the slightest way. Biology is information-driven systems. The information is complexly specified, prescriptive, functional, algorithmically operational, linguistically organized, possesses semantics, punctuation, syntax, grammar, and epibetics. These are things that come only from intelligence. See, information, algorithms, and linguistics arise only from intelligence. Material processes have no potential to make them whatsoever. And we've discovered that DNA is precisely this. It is complexly
David doesn't
specified.
have the same experience as you. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know you're very passionate about describing all the different aspects of it, and I want to give you time for that, but I also want to be able to go back and forth a little bit. To David here, 2-Day doesn't have the experience, and 4 doesn't have any other knowledge of a creator outside of this conversation. He hears that all this is just information that was interacted with beforehand. Where is the new information coming from that shows a sign that a creator put something here that wasn't there before? Do we have cells that exist that just didn't exist before, or do we have organic matter do we have matter or things that just come out of nowhere, or does everything seem to be like a domino connected to the thing before it?
No, okay, so I'll give you, I think I know what you're asking, and I'll answer it this way.
Sure.
There is something called cortical inheritance. It's also called cytotaxis or directed assembly. And it's this fact. The cell, when cells reproduce, they do so by splitting. They split all the molecular machinery in the cell. It all gets cut in half, and you get 2 cells. The DNA, the information in the DNA doesn't make cells. They only get passed on by splitting for all organisms. So you have human cortis in your cell. That's the membrane and the machinery. Everything but the DNA and the nucleus is the cortis of the cell, right? Yours is different from a chicken because you're differently designed. A chicken's cortis, cell cortis, is not the same as a human's. Neither is a chimpanzee. There are differences between them.
Well, we have different parents, correct?
Right. So, but the thing is, your human cell cortices, you got them because your parents had sexual reproduction cells that split and split and split and made your body, right? Where did your parents get theirs? They got theirs from their parents, who got theirs from their parents, who got theirs from their parents. And it goes right back to the creation, because the DNA, the information in the DNA doesn't build. Cells aren't built up from the ground up. They only split, and they split the machinery inside, and each gets half. Right? That's how cells pass on. Now, and so this is called cortical inheritance. It's a sticky problem for the secular camp because they don't like discussing it, and you won't get a nickel for investigating it in science because it points to special creation. It was already a human cell in the beginning. There was already a dinosaur cell. There was already a chicken cell. Nature, cells don't build in any species. They don't build up. They're only split. So there was a first one, see? So this points to special creation. But the real thing that is profound is that today we know that DNA is a package of prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, linguistic information that drives complex machinery in a cell. Machines are a product of intelligence. Information, algorithms, and linguistics can only be produced by intelligence. And so what the 20th century biology has discovered is life is designed because it possesses properties that can only be produced by intelligence. Nature can't have done it. It is scientifically impossible for undirected, unintelligent processes to produce complexly specified, prescriptive, functional, algorithmic, linguistic information, and then a system to utilize it. That's not possible with molecular interactions. it requires intelligence. All examples of information algorithms and linguistics are traced to an intelligence. There are no exceptions. None.
We're
So,
running low on time here. We got about 5 minutes till the end of the stream. I have a question that I'd like to ask. And I think it's an interesting question. How could you learn or discover if hypothetically you were mistaken about this belief? How would you find it out?
again, that's like asking me if I could convince you the car in your backyard is not a car, but it's actually a carriage with a
I don't
horse.
think so. That's
I
definitional,
think it's
right?
moot. What
That's
I'm saying is,
definitional.
yeah,
Can
but
you provide a
you're
better
asking,
example?
well, you're asking me if I could prove to you. What you're asking is if I could show you somehow that prescriptive functional information algorithms, linguistics, and molecular information-driven machinery, which is interdependent, can arise from nature, then would you change your view? But the problem is that can't be done. It's not that under any circumstance would I change my view. It's that what you're asking for is impossible because they can't be produced by nature. It's not possible.
I don't think I was. I don't think I was very clear with the question. Let me try again. I get what I'm really getting at is what could you observe, discover that could lead you to an alternate conclusion?
Again, how would it be possible for me to change my view on it when we know from modern science that the properties of the cell can only be produced by intelligence? That's the
Could you
thing.
be mistaken about
it's-
that belief?
There, the point is there is no gray area in between. There's no question mark in there. That's the thing. Because of the discoveries in biology, it is prescriptive functional information algorithms, linguistics, driving molecular machinery. That's what it is, right? You'd have to disprove that's what it is to have a different view.
Could someone be
So-
mistaken? Could someone know of a scientific fact and wholeheartedly believe it 100%, and be mistaken about that being a scientific fact?
What, that prescriptive functional information algorithms and linguistics and information driven machinery aren't all only produced by intelligence, but are also produced by natural processes? Is that what you mean?
No, any scientific fact, not specifically that one.
Well, as long as the things that I just described are true, there's no potential for anything other than teleology to be involved in as the cause of biology. That's the thing. It's a hard, cold, bare, brute fact. It's not. Again, there's no gray area because it is what it is.
Well, maybe
It-
next
it-
time we can talk about the implications of this and how the next steps that it leads you to, and what how it affects your life and
Okay.
the other parts about it. But mainly, I'm just trying to do for time here. So, Nephilim, thanks for
Okay.
chatting with us. And
Thanks for having me on.
we'll have you on again sometime soon.
Okay. Thanks again. You guys have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you. All right, I guess this is the point where we wrap up. I know we had one more person with their hand up, and I feel really bad because they've
Some
been
hobo's
waiting.
been waiting for a minute. I can push it a little if you can push it a little.
I can push it a little bit. All right, we can invite him up, and something weird just happened with my screen, but it appears to be okay. Hey, how's it going? I know you've been on a call-in show before.
Yeah, I've been on Sushi's show before. And thank you guys for giving me the chance, like staying a little bit longer and let me get a chance to state my claim. I actually, because of the thing the last person brought up, I actually would like to go with intelligent design as well. I'd like to add a few caveats. I don't see random chance as opposite of intelligent design. I see intelligent design working through random chance. I also don't see because I know a lot of times when people say intelligence design, they say that nature can't do it by itself. I'm making the claim that nature is doing it by itself, and that in and of itself is God.
So I think what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing this correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like God created evolution. Is that kind of the same thing as what you're saying?
And God is evolution.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'd even say this, that it possibly, once that single cell, the first living thing came on Earth, however that was, there could have been the possibility that octopuses could have been the intelligent life forms, and that apes would have been left behind. But that still points me to intelligent design.
Okay. Does this belief of yours that God is evolution, does that affect how you behave, your life, anything like that?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I had a religious experience, and I was drinking 6 days a week. Some weeks 7, and now I drink like on like birthdays, the Super Bowl, and I'm more actively trying to pursue to better my life.
Okay. Well, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have you guys ever heard somebody make the claim that both random chance and intelligent design is the same thing?
Ooh, that's actually one of my favorite topics. I'm gonna do a video one day about how Calvinism and naturalism are very similar. They're basically
Yeah.
cousins or siblings.
I'm wondering, some hobo. That sounds weird to say. Anyway,
Yeah, you can call
so-
me Jonathan if you prefer.
Jonathan. Yeah, I like that better. Jonathan. What caused like I guess I know the answer to that question. This belief was the cause of you making these changes to your life. I'm wondering a bit deeper though. Like what is it about this belief that made you decide to make these life changes?
Well, when I had my religious experience, to me, it felt like God was talking to me. And I just suddenly realized that good is a thing. I'm 35 now. When I was like 20, I was very nihilistic. And I didn't even believe good and bad was a thing. But knowing, okay, there is a God, and there is good, and I would like to choose to be on the side of good, is what kind of changed my, I guess.
Okay.
See, this is the thing. I even realized good was a thing when I realized God was a thing.
I think I hear what you're saying. I'd like to repeat this in a little bit of different language,
Okay.
and you can tell me if I'm picking up what you're putting down. Hopefully, I am. I think I am. It sounds like you had this religious experience, and you came to a conclusion that there is such thing as good and bad. Like you can do good things and you can do things that are bad.
Yeah.
And that kind of informed that belief of a God. Am I so far? Am I correct?
I think to me it felt opposite of because I saw a really bright light, and to me that was God. And then because I now believed in God, I believed in good.
Okay, I had it backwards. Okay, gotcha. That's really interesting.
Do you think now that you feel that you see what good is, to in your view, if you were mistaken on your experience with God, you would still believe in that good?
Yeah, this has been over 2 years now. Even if I stop believing in God, um, I would still try to be a better person. I'd try to better my life. Uh, but for me, like my beliefs of God can change because I could step back and say, God, maybe God isn't interacting at all, but I still see all this matter, all this existence as God itself.
Hmm.
Like maybe because I might be I'm open to the idea, maybe I'm imagining some of my experiences with God. Uh, but I still think, um, like even just looking at science and things makes me think of God so much that it would be so hard for me to, I'd have to unravel a lot to stop believing in God.
Hmm. With regards to this believing in good and bad, does that fulfill anything for you?
Yes, because right now I feel like I'm preparing myself for the future. I mean, I guess, what else would you be preparing for? But preparing myself, because I do believe spiritual warfare is a thing as well. Uh, I don't think it's cut and dry as good versus evil, because this is a weird thing. I see evil as good too. I'm not saying I'm going to go murder anybody or anything like that, but I see that the fact that evil exists is a good thing. But um, yeah, I guess I feel like I'm preparing myself, and because I feel like I do believe the things we do here, this conversation right now, does matter, even if this conversation came about by random chance.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it matters. I like it.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, are you guys atheists?
I'm an
Or are you?
agnostic atheist. I'll let David speak for himself, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly. Yeah. Yeah. I could be open to a prime mover kind of thing, which with the Nephilim guy, I almost was like, we can meet there at the back if you want to naturalism all the way back. I'll meet you at the front. But
Yeah, why? That's interesting. Yeah. Why do
but
you guys believe that God's not intervening still?
I don't actually. For me personally, I kind of plant my flag at I don't know. I've never come
Oh yeah.
across a good way to determine if that's the case or not.
Oh yeah. Or I'm sorry. I guess I meant that more towards David.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm sorry.
oh yeah,
oh yeah.
sure.
Well, no.
Yeah. I have not seen anything that seems out of the domino effect. I mean, there's certain things that like I can't explain how the domino effect happened, but it doesn't seem like it came out of nowhere, so to speak. And I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of claims of miracles in different ways, but there's also conflicting claims of miracles, and it's uh, a lot of the miracles that people tell me about are more interpersonal, more something of interpretation of the subject and meaningful to the people. My goal is not to take away meaningful experiences to people, but me personally, I think
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I can't figure out what happened at the beginning, if there is a beginning, but I know that in the timeline I can see, it seems like dominoes, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I feel you there. Um, by the way, I looked up. Let me know if I shouldn't be going down this tangent. Uh, but I was looking up the Big Bang and different theories scientists have about what happened at right before the Big Bang and at the Big Bang. And quantum field theory apparently is really popular, and it's the idea that like even in a vacuum, there's this energy uh, where matter can just uh, matter and antimatter can just pop out in and out of existence. And and I'm going to research this more, but apparently they've witnessed this to some degree. I don't know. To me, that's
I've heard of, and that's kind of the closest thing I've heard of, like something kind of recorded, kind of popping out. But it could be that we're not zoomed in enough. I don't know. And of course, that might be overly skeptical. But practically speaking, I just don't see the day-to-day interaction in that way. So I don't know. Yeah.
That's fair. What about like a breaking of because I see one way I see God is like awareness, and it's like as we go through life, it's like I think we're not just in one matrix, like it's like we pop out of one matrix and now we can see reality differently. And it's like as we grow, we keep popping out. Do you experience that at all?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's like learning what a new word means. It's like you couldn't read that word before; it was just shapes and squiggles. But once you understand it, it has new meaning to things. Learning a new language or having muscle memory to driving a car feels a lot different than the first time you drive it, kind of thing. I think that life is full of these paradigm shifts and surprising moments of sheer experience almost.
Yeah, I feel you there, dude. I started learning some new languages, but I never finished it. But I bet that is a huge awareness breaking through. Like once you can finally speak to people in another language, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to start as an adult. I'm trying. It's not working.
Which language are you trying to learn?
Espanol. Soy
See.
perezoso. That means lazy, I think.
Yo tengo el gato.
Hey.
You took the cat?
I have a cat.
Oh, you have a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know much, but I know that.
Love it. Yeah, interesting concepts. I think practically speaking, it's almost it's so similar to naturalism in a lot of ways. But is there anything that you could learn that would make you think there was a non-naturalistic explanation?
If I saw reality just falling apart, like we saw, like the universe is falling apart and it's coming toward us, that would definitely make me doubt. I'd still see it as a God, God though. It's like, oh, suddenly everything's not working. Everything decided, all the physical laws just stopped working, like that. So I
Was
guess that would be the
your
thing.
religious experience part of the physical laws?
No, physical laws. So my religious experiences and physical laws are kind of something I experienced throughout life. Because I went through a phase where I was an atheist, but wait, I'm sorry. I probably didn't answer your question the way you intended it. Like,
Maybe I can ask it a little different. Do you think that your religious experience was something outside of the natural progression of things? Was it something supernatural?
I mean, it felt supernatural.
Whatever that
like
means.
It felt like I transcended. And the way I see it is like our brains are like antennas that can reach into. I mean, this could change, but it's like I feel like our brains can reach into the spirit world, I guess you could say. It's hard for me to think of that as supernatural, though. Sometimes, I guess I kind of see it as part of nature as well, or consciousness.
Now I've got so many rabbit holes I want to go down though. This and somebody reel me in. Thanks, Pierce. And why do you want other people to believe this?
I don't necessarily want people to believe this, but I am trying, when I do run into atheists or agnostics, I do try to challenge their belief of, they may be atheist or agnostic. I know when I was an atheist or agnostic, I was against the views that I heard of God. So I try to challenge them to forget about some of the beliefs we hear and like be opening to God being something different than what they hear.
But what difference do you want them to hear?
Like one might be that creation and creator are one separate, but also not separate. Because like, it's like, I guess I could word it as the universe created itself. And that is how I see God. Versus like the story in the Bible is God making all these things, and that story separates God and the creation when they're not as separate as we think.
How could we know if they were very separate or if they, were basically the same thing?
Yeah. I'm going to take a few seconds to think about this. Well, so I guess we are part of the creation, and I think part of understanding what God is realizing that we are also God. I'm not saying that we have I'm not making the claim that we can just go and have all these God powers, but our consciousness itself, all the matter in us is all a part of God. So I guess exploring yourself possibly would be the best way to know.
How, if I value what is true and I really want to know if I'm a part of this God, how could I discover if I was or if I was not?
So I've noticed a lot of folks, when they have their God experiences or when they have a really hard time in their life, and I'm not saying that people need to throw themselves in danger or something, but how I'm trying to experience God is simply by breaking as many biases as I can in my head. For instance, like today, a breakthrough I made was a breakthrough I went through was realizing that random chance and intelligent design don't have to be separate, or they're both intertwined. I know that sounds so dumb to folks who to somebody who may not have realized it before, but that would be one example of a breakthrough I make. I guess our brain, however our brains work, we have all these dualities of good and evil and men and women, all these things. And I'm not necessarily saying these dualities don't exist, but when we look at things so dualistically, it's like both black and white and gray are true at the same time with a lot of these dualities. And back to your question, by breaking through these is my path to trying to experience God more.
Are you saying that you find that's important to notice the interconnectedness of all the elements of life, that good things and bad things are all part of everything, that it's to label something wholly good, wholly bad, to
and it's funny, it's like you're both getting away from that it's neither good or bad while also seeing that it's either good or bad or even both, like all these different ways of looking at it.
Hmm. Cool. I got some friends I want to introduce you to after this show. I think you really get along with. So send me a message, and we'll probably wrap up here if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, thank you for coming up and chatting. One last question. How do you think the conversation went, and do you have any feedback for us?
I think it went good. I actually did do. I don't know if you guys know Deviant Robot, but I did a
Mhm.
epistemology with him earlier today. So, I guess
Yes.
I might, and in some ways I was kind of prepped. I felt like prepped because like I already was asked a lot of questions, so it's like all this was already open.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you can kind of talk about the same thing, but it expresses differently depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, this is the funny thing about God too. I actually feel like people are supposed to be atheists just because of that reason.
Let's
Okay, I can't
explore
let you
that
just say
next
that.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll wait till next time. Fine.
Yeah, if you want to join next week, are we doing it next week, David?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Then
Yeah.
definitely join us next week. I would love to talk about that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
Sometimes
okay,
we
I'll write it
bounce
down.
between here and the politics and religion server and a few others. So just check our YouTube for the updates.
All right, sweet.
All right. Thanks again.
Yep, thank you guys.
All right. So I guess we're going to call that a wrap. We went a little overtime, but that's okay with me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. It's nice to kind of just talk about implications and value and needs in life a little bit, as opposed to just kind of break down logic all day.
Yeah, I really enjoy the conversations that aren't always a truth claim, this truth claim supported by this truth claim, supported by this truth claim. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's nice to take a step back and look at a big picture, and yeah, I like it.
Absolutely.
All right, I
Well,
guess.
great. Thanks to everybody who came out. Had a great time. Feel free to join us on stage next week. Pierce Watkins is the man. He did a lot, pretty much all the technical stuff to get things rolling here, and I'm super grateful. And thanks to everybody who supported. And we had people, kind of helping out with the comments and everything. And thanks everybody.
Yeah, it's thanks for the appreciation, David. But I also want to say that I appreciate you. I really enjoy your presence up here, and I don't know that I'd be doing this without you. So
Yeah,
happy
this
to
is
happy
synergy
you're
right
here.
here.
We got synergy.
I love
All
it.
right.
I love it.
That being said, David out, Pierce out. I love puns, and I'm gonna roll that outro. All right.